if you even need it. You need to have someone come in and run that extra cable, but we're not talking about huge bucks to really give you that peace of mind. So that is certainly something that I would recommend as well. A question here about wireless digital sensors. The only company that I know that has a major company that has a wireless sensor is Schick. We did not have great luck with it. And it's not a knock on Schick. We just had issues where people found that it was a very expensive system. They found that the sensor was a lot thicker because of that transmitter on the back of it. We had 2 offices over the years that actually had to go into a dumpster to try to find the sensor because it's so small and it doesn't have the cable attached to it that they threw it out by accident. So we have not had a lot of people that have a lot of interest in that. At some point, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, 20 years, who knows, all sensors will probably be wireless. They'll probably be a ½ millimeter thick. I mean, that's going to be great when we get there, but I just don't think that that's going to be happening anytime soon. What about taking a digital photograph of pans and sets? That is a really good option as well. We talked about the fact that with some of the scanners, they're expensive and they have a limited scanning service. What some offices will do is to take that film and put it onto a view box, turn off the lights, and take a digital photo of that. And that is an excellent option. We have a lot of offices that do that. It's going to be quicker to do that than it is to scan it, especially at a high enough resolution that it's diagnostic. So thank you for that question. I think that's a great idea, and it's certainly something we'd recommend. With Curve Dental software, digital images stored locally. I think I've already answered that question. They will be storing all images locally. I think that's really the way to go. That the other ones that are out there are doing the same thing as well. Question here about the Gendex digital pan set. Do you recommend buying an additional sensor or just switching the sensor back and forth? Is it durable enough to trust assistants to be moving it back and forth? Some of the pan sets out there, that's some of the, and 3D cone beam systems, that's the way they're designed, that the sensor is supposed to be removed when you're taking a pan versus a set or going from 3D. I think in theory it's obviously a concern. You know, those sensors are very expensive and dropping them is usually not something that happens more than once. But because of that, in our experience, most offices are just really careful with it. We have not seen offices have any problems with it. And that because there are so many that are designed that way, I would not talk you out of a specific model just because they use that particular design. And Gendex happens to have a really good system, and I think it's a really good one as well. Another question is, do I recommend electronic signature pads for patients to sign their paperwork and then scan it later to digitize? Well, no. If you're going to have electronic signature pad, you're pretty much eliminating the need to scan a document. And we talked about dent forms and some of the kiosk features in programs like EagleSoft. You won't need that paper form. So yes, that part of that whole process is to have that electronic signature pad. Patient comes in, their information is already filled out online, they sign the signature pad, and you're ready to go ahead and start seeing them. So I think that's a great option. Another good question here. Are the digital panoramic bite wing x-rays as in the Planmeca unit good and diagnostic? It's kind of a loaded question. Are they good? Yeah, they're better than nothing. If you have some patients who are gaggers or you can't use an intraoral sensor with, they're certainly better than nothing. We have a lot of offices over the years that have purchased, and I'm not trying to knock Planmeca here. It happens to be a good pan. But we have a number of offices that purchase that unit because of that bite wing feature, and they just don't use it. In my mind, it just really does not replace an intraoral bite wing radiograph. So again, in the pinch, if you got nothing else that you can use, it'll work. But I don't think it's really, if you're buying it for that one feature, you may end up being disappointed. What digital pan do I recommend? There are a number of decent ones out there. One that's not as well known that we've actually installed for a number of offices is from a French company called Owandi. They've got one called the IMAX Touch. I happen to like that unit a lot. Other ones that we've been recommending have been the Planmeca Pro 1, the Gendex 8500. Instrumentarium has a beautiful pan, the OP200D. It's a little bit on the higher end of the price scale. Sirona. There really aren't a lot of clunkers out there. We've been really happy with most of the digital pans that we've seen. Another question about scanners. We're going to skip over that. What sensors do I recommend for a pedo practice? As I had mentioned, for pedo, more often than not, we are recommending phosphor plate systems. Kids just, they bite down on them. It's a big risk. If you are going to go with hard sensors, then make sure it's a company that has multiple sizes, and that's not a knock on the ones that have a one-size-fits-all. But more often than not, for pedo, you're for sure going to need a size 1, and some offices find that they're going to need a size 0 as well. There's not a lot of companies that have a size 0, so if that's going to come into play, you need to really plan out what software you're going to use and what sensors. Question here about migration. Is it vital that one software be able to convert all the previous software's information? The rule that we have in technology is garbage in, garbage out. So the basic answer is if the data can be converted and you're happy with that conversion, go ahead and do it. It's going to make your life a lot easier. A lot of times that is not the case. We've worked with a lot of practices that have told us, we tried to do a data conversion, and most of the companies will do a free test conversion for you. You should really insist on that for any software that you're evaluating. They'll do it. They don't want to lose the sale. So tell them that you want to do a test conversion, and you'll see. And if a lot of stuff doesn't come over, if the wrong patient is associated with the wrong plan, it's going to be a nightmare. You're better off running the old software on 1 or 2 computers as patients come in, manually enter their balance over, bring in any important information. It's a pain in the rear to do it, but within a year or so, you're caught up to speed, and I think that's going to be the best long-term solution for something like that. We have about another 15 minutes or so. I have to end at 6:30, and I apologize about that. We have more questions that I'm going to be able to get to. We still have 71 on the list here, but I'm going to try to get to most of your questions. As I said, when the seminar is over, or when you leave the seminar, you're going to actually see something on your screen that you can just click a little box if you want me to contact you individually. You see my email address on the screen there as well. You see my website. You can always ask your questions in email as well. I'll get to all of them. I promise you that if you email me a question, I will get to you. What are the patient education programs that are available for pedo and are Spanish English? That is a really good question. I know for sure Casey is. I'm actually not a huge fan of the ones that use sound, and the reason for that is I think some practices use patient education software incorrectly. In my mind, you're really supposed to use it as a fancy pad and paper. It's designed to be used chair-side to walk a patient through a procedure. A lot of offices, when they have the sound, what they'll do is they'll sit the patient in a chair and they'll say, okay, we're going to go ahead and show you this little movie, and we'll come back in 5-10 minutes and talk about it with you. And I think that's a mistake. And the mistake that you're making is that you think that the patient is there to buy the procedure. They're not. They're there to buy you, or the confidence in you and your office to provide that for them. So I am not a huge fan of ones like Casey. And Casey happens to be an excellent system, but I like the ones like Aurasphere and Consult Pro and the ones like that that don't have sound built into them, because it really forces you to involve the patient in the whole procedure. Okay, I'm thinking about going paperless and switching practice management software. Should I switch software first integrated or load the old software on the new hardware and make the switch? We kind of talked about that already. Even if you do a data conversion, you're going to want to bring the old program over, because you're never going to get 100% conversion. If you go from, say, an Easy Dental to a Dentrix, yeah, it'll be pretty close because they have the same database. But for any other conversion, not everything is ever going to transfer over. So you would always want to have the old software running so you can always refer to that as necessary. Another question is about wireless or wireless network. I'm going to skip over that one. Question about Dentamax for the practice management software and their imaging. Dentamax, I believe, is using the Apteryx software for the image management software. Dentamax is an up-and-comer. I saw them a couple of years ago. I haven't really taken a closer look at the program over the last couple of years. At the time, it had it was a work in progress. I felt they did some things well. There was some room for some improvement. The pricing seems to be really good. I plan to take another look at them again. So it's certainly one that I would not cross off the list. I think they definitely have some possibilities there. Another question about tablets. We're going to skip over that. I'm just going through some of these questions here. A lot of this stuff is redundant, so I've already answered. Any experience using Apple TV in the operatories instead of the cable satellite? I have an Apple TV at home, which I love. We definitely have some offices that are using the Apple TV as well. I think it's great because it allows you to stream music, stream video throughout the operatory. I may have given you the impression that I'm not an Apple fan, but that's not the case. I happen to love Apple. I love their products, and I love the design of their stuff. For something like this, I think it's a great option to use in the operatory. Do I know of any way to wirelessly transmit from my computer to a second monitor? No, I really don't. And I've looked into that in the past. There are ways, if you're worried about cable runs, there are systems out there where you can basically have an adapter on your computer and on the monitor and run a thin Ethernet cable rather than the thicker VGA cable. But I'm not familiar with any wireless ways of doing it. It would be nice, and I'm sure there is something out there. I unfortunately just have not found it yet. Finding a software company should be a long-term relationship. What factors should I use to qualify a progressive vendor? How do you find the right partner? Talk to your colleagues. Go on to dentaltown.com. Go on the Internet Dental Forum. Ask me. I can certainly tell you my experiences with the companies off the record. It's a really tough decision, and you have to talk with your peers to see who likes what program and if they've been happy